while the usual verdict on moving away from non-renewable sources that we should move to renewable sources as soon as possible because of environmental impacts that fossil fuels have, in terms of the global south, particularly Africa, it just simply isn't feasible because the countries aren't even able to electrify their entire populations completely. My essay was To What Extent is Sustainability Undermined by Global Inequality, analyzed with reference to competing voices in the global north and the global south. My thesis was that the existing disparity between the global north and the global south largely undermines current efforts to achieve developmental goals.
Do you think that approaches to sustainability should be separate and more directed toward like the state, the global north or global south is in?
So that's a great question. I don't think what the world is doing is wrong because I think that a move to sustainability is like a necessity. But due to pre-existing socio-economic conditions that separate the global north and the global south, the move to achieving development goals is undermined. I feel that there should be a sort of help from the global north to the global south.
When you say help, well, you do know that like most of the global north countries, as we say, already give, say, a lot of aid to African countries, like billions of dollars. Do you think we need more of that? Or do you think it's not really effective and we need to sort of look in another direction?
So I think the aid that's being given would be sufficient to raise standards from beyond what they are right now. But I think due to problems like corruption, stuff like it can definitely be more streamlined into better practices to be done with the existing aid, as well as better advice on sort of policies that they want to implement right now and they've implemented in the past.
What do you think could have been the problem? And like you mentioned the example of Nigeria in your essay, that like they're still facing so many electricity grid issues and they don't have power most of the time. What do you think is preventing from reaching that level?
They're working on farms right now because that's the sort of agrarian culture that they're used to. So the society itself hasn't progressed to a state where there's like centralized mass production, which I would say exists. That is one of the defining factors of the global north.
The thought I just had was that I remember in one article we had to read, it was about the sustainable development goals and how they're being measured for each country. And then it said that the countries are doing the best. It's only for the emissions in that certain country, but it doesn't account for the emissions they're creating in other countries. In order to kind of close the inequality gap, do you think they should stop the exploitations, or do you think they should keep the exploitations but provide even more aid, because even having some sort of like business in the region is helpful for the people?
So I think there is definitely economic growth where there wouldn't have been before in these countries, but the trade-off is the sort of environmental hazards that they are willing to put up with. Like half of these countries, they just use straight up like child labor or like unpaid workers. I don't think factories necessarily by themselves are bad, but I think that there has to be obviously some more sort of accountability for the production practices that they're using.
And I'll follow up with that. So, New York State, the amount of emissions New York State itself produces, like if you add 48 countries in Africa altogether, it's like the equivalent of that, which is incredibly high. And their emissions are not just affecting New York or America, like they're affecting other countries too. And so, do you think there should be regulations around that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that there should be caps in every single country based on population, based on existing practices. The sort of level of output in New York is also way beyond where they should be. But I also think that that is counterbalanced by how they are leaps and bounds ahead of other countries and moving towards renewable energy.